Hello everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I, of course, am just another heavy metal maniac, and today I'm doing another discography ranking. Today I'm going to be going over all of the studio full-length albums from none other than New Orleans sludge metal legends, Crowbar. Now, Crowbar are one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. I absolutely love this band, and ranking their discography is pretty damn difficult because this band has no bad albums. All these albums, I think, are at the very least pretty good. So yeah, ranking them is difficult. Now, I obviously did this ranking, I think a couple months ago in a tier list format, but now I've switched over to a numbered format, obviously, so I'm going to be redoing their ranking. So, yeah, without further ado, enough of my ramblings, let's get into the video. Just one more thing, we're only going to be counting studio albums, like I said, so we're not counting EPs, compilations, demos, none of that. We're going over all 12 of their studio full-length albums. So now, without further ado, let's get into the video. So coming in at number 12, coming in dead last, it is their 1991 debut album, Obedience Through Suffering. I have a couple gripes with this album. My biggest gripe with this album is the production. The guitar tone, like that very heavy, thick guitar tone this band is known for, is not here on this album, and the guitars are also pretty thin in the mix. The bass sounds just kind of odd. The drums are my biggest problem with the production. The drums sound very just kind of washy, and they honestly don't sound that good. I don't like the way the drums sound on this album. I think the vocals are way too high in the mix at certain points, and the vocals are also very different. Like, it's not that kind of aggressive bellow that Kirk is known for. Like, they're kind of these more just very kind of sullen, clean, crooned vocals. For what they are, they're good, but again, I like the angrier Kirk vocals. And also to me on the sound, they kind of have not really found their sound yet. This was a time when sludge metal was still very much in its infancy. Like, you know, sludge metal really didn't take off until I think a couple more years after this album came out. So this was a very influential album for sludge metal. But for me, it is definitely far from their strongest effort, although they do still manage to write some pretty killer songs on here. Like A Breed Apart, I think, is a really killer song. The title track is really good. Feeding Fear, The Innocent, Subversion is a pretty good song. Yeah, they still managed to write some killer songs, and I do still think this album is pretty good. It's just falls to number 12 for me because, again, they kind of, to me, haven't really found their sound yet, and they're still searching for it. And also the production of this album, the production's really the big thing that kind of holds it back. And they would just go on they would go on to do incredible things after this album, so yeah, that's why for me it lands at number 12. Alright, coming in now at number 11, it is Equilibrium, released in the year 2000. This album, for one, it suffers from kind of being wedged in between two albums that I really, really love, so that's kind of maybe the reason why it suffers a bit. For me, this album is kind of... Okay, again, I like all these albums. I think Crowbar does not have a bad album. All these albums are at the very least pretty good. But on this album, just to me, there aren't as many tracks that really kind of stand out to me. The ones that do, the tracks on this album that really do kind of jump out at me are the ones where they kind of go against their own grain. Like, To Touch the Hand of God is a beautiful, like, piano dirge. I absolutely love that song, and they do a really killer cover of Dreamweaver, the song Dreamweaver on here. You know, that fun kind of 80s pop song. They turn it into this big, heavy sludge metal thing, and it's awesome. There are still some other songs in here that I think are pretty good, like Down Into the Rotting Earth is pretty good. Euphoria -1 is pretty killer, I think. But for me, a lot of these songs, they kind of feel a lot more like Down songs than they do Crowbar songs. Like, there's a lot more kind of southern rock boogie on this album. There's, again, it's kind of more of that kind of, again, it doesn't really feel like your traditional Crowbar album at points, and the production is also kind of, and it's not as bad as Obedience Through Suffering, but it's not great in my opinion. It's kind of muddy, I guess, and also, I don't know. For me, this album is good, but again, it just has a few. It does suffer. Like, again, the tracks that stand out are the ones that don't sound like traditional Crowbar songs, and again, it suffers from being wedged in between two of my favorite Crowbar albums. So that's why for me, Equilibrium falls to number 11. Still a good album. It's still enjoyable, but it's just lower on my list. Coming in now at number 10, it is their 2016 release, The Serpent Only Lies. This is a really solid. This is a solid album in my opinion, and this at this point to me, Crowbar have definitely kind of figured out their sound. They got pretty much a formula down at this point, and there's still some killer songs on here like "I Am the Storm," "Falling While Rising," "Surviving the Abyss." Yeah, there's some killer songs on here. But my favorite song is, again, this kind of has the same thing that Equilibrium had, where kind of the main standout track is the one that sounds like the least traditional Crowbar song. That song is Song of the Dunes. I think that's a really, really awesome song. But yeah, this album to me is just kind of, I don't want to really say it's like Crowbar by numbers, but it kind of feels like it is. It's just, Crowbar putting out a Crowbar album. They still managed to write some killer songs, but there just aren't as many standout tracks to me on this album, even though at this point I think they got the production figured out, and they very much have found their sound at this point. It's just, to me, Serpent Only Lies, again, good album. It's just, this is how it goes when you rank albums. You have to, at a certain point it just becomes assigning numbers to albums. So yeah, for me, Serpent Only Lies, it lands at number 10. Coming in now at number 9, it is Sever the Wicked Hand, which was released in 2011. This album, I originally had it kind of higher when I was kind of thinking of this ranking, but it just fell to number 9 for me. I still think it is a really good album. This album is kind of stand out in their discography in a lot of ways, where it kind of, I feel like at points it has kind of a more upbeat. Well, upbeat's not really the right word for Crowbar, because Crowbar is just all about depression and sorrow, but it does feel like less bone-crushingly sorrowful than a lot of their other previous releases, because, I mean, this was the first album that kind of came out after, Kirk Windstein kind of, came out of his alcoholism, which, good on him for getting out of the shit he was in. But yeah, this album, I mean, there's still some really killer songs in here, like Cemetery Angels is one of my favorite Crowbar songs. I absolutely love that song. I think, yeah, that song is absolutely awesome. Let Me Mourn is really good. Liquid Sky and Cold Black Earth, Protectors of the Shrine. They take kind of a chance with the instrumental ballad on here, I guess, Farewell to Misery, which I think I really like that song. Even though it's kind of oddly placed in the track listing, I feel, yeah, I think that is a really good song. One song in here that I kind of am not really big on, though, is Cleanse Me, Heal Me. Just because, I don't know, that song, it's kind of bordering on Christian metal, which I mean, it's still good. It's not just the cringeworthy shitty Christian radio rock. I think it's still decent, but it's it kind of approaches that territory, and which again just feels kind of odd for Crowbar. But I mean, overall, Sever the Wicked Hand, I think this is a very solid album. It's just, for me, it lands at number 9 just because there's other albums that I like more. Alright, coming in now at number 8, it is Zero and Below, released in 2022. This is obviously their newest studio offering to date. 4 words, Bleeding from Every Hole. That song fucking whoops ass. I absolutely love the shit out of that song. That's honestly I think one of the best songs Crowbar's ever written. And there's some other really killer songs on here, like The Fear That Binds You is awesome, Chemical Gods, Crush Negativity. Yeah, again, to me, Crowbar at this point, they very much have kind of a formula down, and they're not going to release a bad album. They're just going to be consistently putting out these fucking killer albums. And yeah, Zero and Below for me is just another killer album. I put it at number 8 just because I feel like, it is still their newest album, and even though it did come out at this point 2 years ago, I just don't really feel like I can rank it higher than their older albums, and I do like some of the older albums more. But yeah, this is still a really killer album. I still really like a lot of songs in here. Denial of the Truth is a really good song too. Yeah, it's just, for me, Zero and Below, it lands at number 8. Again, at a certain point it just becomes assigning numbers to albums when it comes to ranking bands like this. So for me, it lands at number 8. Coming in now at number 7, it is Life's Blood for the Downtrodden, released in 2005. This album featuring Rex Brown of Pantera on the bass, which I love Rex Brown, and I think he has a very awesome, unique kind of way of playing bass, and his bass tone is awesome, so that really gives this album a really cool vibe. And this album was kind of dedicated to Dimebag Darrell, even though this album was kind of written and recorded before all that shit went down in Columbus. This album, when it came out, it was dedicated to his memory, which, of course, you know, all these dudes in the sludge metal scene were all like friends and stuff, and just in the southern metal scene, they were all friends, so I think that's really cool. Yeah, and they write some really killer songs in here. Slave No More is such an awesome track. Angel's Wings is like one of their most aggressive songs. That's like straight up like thrash metal riffs on that song. I really love that song. Coming Down is one of my favorite Crowbar songs. Man, Coming Down is so goddamn good. The song Moon is such a beautiful song. I really love that. And they also take another chance, kind of, I guess, a softer song in here. The song Life's Blood is, again, just really, really beautiful. And, yeah, I do love this album. It's just, you know, for me, it's just kind of more middle of the road just because, you know, I know I'm repeating myself, but again, I love most of these albums, so ranking this discography is extremely difficult. Life's Blood for me lands at number 7, even though I do love it, even though I think they wrote some of their best songs of all time on this album. Coming in at number 6, it is Symmetry in Black, released in 2014. This is my favorite Crowbar album, released in the 21st century. I think this album is pretty damn killer. Walk with Knowledge Wisely is one of my favorite Crowbar songs. That is what a way to start off this album. And there's other really good, awesome songs in here. I love Shaman of Belief and Symbolic Suicide. Symmetry in White is a killer song. Teach the Blind to See. I really like, again, kind of the softer, again, maybe not ballad is the right word, maybe it's more dirge, but like the clean guitar song, Amaranth. Amaranth, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but yeah, no, that song is absolutely killer. Yeah, this album for me is pretty damn killer. I do really enjoy this album. For me it's number 6, just because I don't like it more than any of their kind of classic albums, which we're gonna get into really quick. But yeah, Symmetry in Black, again, just another absolutely killer album. The guitar tone is heavy as balls. Kirk sounds fantastic. The drums, everything about this album, like the drums, the bass, they all sound great. And this, to me, is just Crowbar doing what Crowbar does best, which is giving you just heavy-ass doom riffs, and then, you know, you got the vicious kind of Z-beat hardcore sections that pop up every now and then. And this is just pure heavy-ass sludge metal glory. I absolutely love this album, so yeah, for me, it's number 6. Alright, coming in at number 5, it is Time Heals Nothing, released in 1995. I do have a gripe with this album, and it is the production. I think the drums and the bass sound pretty good, but the guitars, to me, they don't sound terrible, but they are kind of thin and they're muddy, and that kind of, again, the guitar tone that I love about Crowbar kind of isn't on this album, but to me, the songs are so good on this album that it really does, that the guitar tone really doesn't matter at all. Like, the title track is one of my favorite Crowbar songs. I just love how goddamn sad and just depressing that song is. Embracing Emptiness is probably one of my top 5 favorite Crowbar songs. I absolutely love Embracing Emptiness. Lack of Tolerance is, again, one of their most aggressive songs. Like, that song is just pummeling, frankly. That song is so freaking heavy. I also love Leave It Behind, No More Can We Crawl. Yep, this album is absolutely killer. It's just very melancholic and very kind of sorrowful. If the guitar tone was better, I probably would have it higher, but again, the songs are so good that for me, Time Heals Nothing lands at number 5. Coming in at number 4, it is their 1993 self-titled album. Now, this and another album kind of swapped places last minute, and we'll get to the other one that it swapped places with. But yeah, some of my favorite Crowbar songs are on this self-titled album: High Rate Extinction, Fixation. You know, kind of the 2 big songs on here that everyone knows: All I Had I Gave and Existence is Punishment, which I love both of those songs. Those are kind of the 2 big hits, I guess. I don't know, those are 2 songs everybody kind of seems to know from Crowbar. I also love Negative Pollution, Holding Nothing, Self-Inflicted, and they do a pretty killer cover on this album of No Quarter by Led Zeppelin. I still like the original Zeppelin version better, but I think this cover is absolutely killer. Yeah, for me, Crowbar's self-titled album, this is kind of their start of like their true sludge metal sound. Which, whereas Obedience Through Suffering was still kind of them just trying to figure things out, this album was like, okay, we finally got our feet under us a bit, and we're just going to be writing killer albums from here on out. And also hugely influential on the sludge metal as well. This came out the same year as like Houdini by the Melvins and like Take Is Needed for Pain by I Hate God. And again, this is the point where sludge metal I think really kind of started to take off, and it very much became a recognizable force of metal, like a recognizable subgenre of its own. And yeah, again, this is an absolutely killer album. I love the shit out of this album. So for me, it just lands at number 4. Coming in now at number 3, it is Broken Glass, released in 1996. This is the album that the self-titled album swapped places with, because I originally had the self-titled album at number 3, but Broken Glass, for me, edges it out by a little bit. Namely the production. I think the production, while the production on the self-titled album I thought was great, I think the production on Broken Glass is even better. Honestly, for 1996, this still sounds timelessly great as far as production is concerned. And again, this is just that perfect blend of just that vicious, hardcore D-beat sound with those depressing, Sabbathy, doom metal riffs. The guitar tone on this is just threatening and heavy as shit. And I love every song on here. Again, there is not a single dud on this album. Conquering, the opening track, is fucking incredible. Like Broken Glass, Wrath of Time by Judgment is such an awesome song. Nothing More, I love Above, Below, and In Between. You Know I'll Live Again, I Am Forever, Burn Your World. Again, I need to stop myself before I name off just every song on this album, because I jam this album over and over again. I absolutely love this album. This is one of my all-time favorite albums, period. It is a timeless classic, in my opinion, and yeah, I absolutely love this album. For me, Broken Glass, it's number 3. I love this album. Coming in now at number 2, it is Oddfellows Rest, released in 1998. I think this is kind of generally regarded among the fan base as kind of their best album. Just reading over reviews for Crowbar albums and stuff, I think this is generally regarded as their finest hour. And it's not hard to see why. This album is absolutely killer. 2 words, Planets Collide. That song is... My god, that song is just so absolutely incredible. It's heavy, it's sorrowful, it's just bone-crushing. That's like the perfect like Crowbar song in a lot of ways. Overall, this album is kind of slower. There aren't as many kind of those like hardcore sections. This is maybe just kind of a lot more doom-laden than some of their other releases. But yeah, there's still so many killer tracks on here. December Spawn is like one of my top 5 favorite Crowbar songs. I absolutely love December Spawn. New Man Born, which, has cowbell. Any song, that's a way to win me over right away. If you have a cowbell in there, chances are I'm going to be a fan. It's All in the Gravity is a killer song. The title track is, again, this very beautiful, somber little dirge with clean guitars and Kirk singing his heart out, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Suffer as One is an incredible song. To Carry the Load is amazing. Behind the Black Horizon. Yeah, I love this album. The album cover, it perfectly captures the vibe of the album. It's anguished and tormented and just face-meltingly heavy. This, yeah. This is, I think, their most iconic album. Everyone knows the album art. Everyone knows the song Planets Collide. And, yeah, I love this album. So, for me, it lands at number 2. It would be my number 1, but there's one more that I give the edge to. Number 1, it is Sonic Excess in its purest form. Now, this is not just my favorite Crowbar album. This is actually my favorite album of all time. So, yeah, this was my clear-cut number 1 right from the jump. Yeah, I absolutely adore this album. This is a perfect album in my opinion. I love everything about this album. There is not a single weak moment on this album. Repulsive in its splendid beauty is absolutely amazing. I love that song so much. The Lasting Dose, To Build a Mountain, Through the Ashes, Awakening, Counting Days, In Times of Sorrow is again the gorgeous little kind of instrumental dirge on here. Empty Room, It Pours From Me, This is the epitome. This is the perfect Crowbar album, in my opinion. It's very melancholic and sad. It's just depression in its sonic form. Depressing sonic excess in its purest form. I was trying to come up with a clever pun there, and I couldn't. But yeah, like I said, this is my favorite album of all time. I will listen to this album pretty much until the day I die. This is like if you told me the world is gonna end in 1 hour, you can listen to one album before it ends. I'm listening to this album. This is just the perfect album, in my opinion. I absolutely love everything about this album, and I could go on for days and days and days about how much I just absolutely adore this album. And yeah, it's my favorite album of all time. So for me, Sonic Excess is my clear-cut number one. So, yep. Well, that about does it. That concludes the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below. Tell me, what do you think about these albums? What do you think about my rankings? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. Do consider subscribing as well, because I have more content coming your way. And, yep. Like I said, that about does it. I, of course, am just another Heavy Metal Maniac. I'll see you all sometime in the future. In the meantime, all of you take care and have a great day. So long.